Welcome, everybody, to another exciting episode of HomeKit Insider. You've got me, your host, as always, and I guess I usually am, but I'm really excited this week because joining me, I have Matthew Cassinelli, who is basically the guru, the expert on all things shortcuts. And I'm so excited to get into that and automations and all sorts of stuff in the second half of this episode. Matthew, thank you so much for joining here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure. I'm super excited, and home automations fit in a unique space in the shortcuts world, so it'll be good to cover that in detail.
Right, they're like this weird, like a little bit of like a middle ground in between things. You're combining these two different services together, but you can do some really neat stuff with it. So I'm super excited to talk about that and everything. So we will get there, but first let's go ahead, run through the news real quick for the week. We had just a few items that we should talk about. Starting out, the Aqara U400. That is the first smart lock that launched with ultra wideband auto unlocking Apple Home Key support. That is now actually being offered directly through Apple. You can go into an Apple store right now and pick one up off the shelf. But on top of that, they actually made a special like Apple version of it. They're calling it like the Aqara U400 Deluxe kit, and it's the same price, I believe, but it comes with an extra battery in the box. Nice. So you could just hot swap those out, change them on the back. You don't have to plug anything in like into your lock to do anything. Really easy. And it also looks like they have like nicer kind of metal looking on the front of it. So like a slight design tweak, but this looks really cool. I've been testing this one for a while and I still really like it. I don't know if you have a smart lock on your house.
I just moved into a new apartment, so I haven't checked with I have an HOA, unfortunately, but I think it might be possible to get one. It would be very convenient because I'm always doing the thing of like digging my keys out of my pocket at the last second.
I mean, you could obviously do the retrofit solutions on the inside. That would give you you could get a lot of functionality. You couldn't get, Home Key or UWB without replacing that outside part. But maybe if there's, other flexibility, doing something like the level lock with, touching Home Key, that works really well. And it doesn't look like a smart lock. So for a very nosy HOA, they may never even realize that it's a smart lock there. And yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to check out that Aqara one because I do like that brand, and just Apple selling it is always a good mark of approval.
For sure. And it literally just works. The only problem that I've run into is when we get out of the car and my toddler runs up to the house to get in, and then he starts he's poking it and trying to open the door, and it's confused because it thinks people are like trying to put in fingerprints and all of that, and then it has to wait for us to approach the door before the UWB kicks in. So that's the only minor thing that I've run into, but
maybe we could set up a home automation for it later. I think the door locks are the ones that are exceptions for home automations for good reason. If you drive by the house and your front door unlocks, that's not good.
Yeah, I'll just have to put I'll just have to strap an NFC tag to his wrist, and then when he comes up, he just has to tap it, and that'll do it. That'll get him in, at least until he gets an Apple Watch or something. And
I was going to say that
can do it that way.
Yeah,
yeah. We also have some Sonos news. There's been like a Sonos dry spell. We haven't had new products in over a year at least. And this one's still it's a new product, but it's not for everyone at the same time because it's just designed for like professionals and professional installs. But it's the Sonos Amp Multi. So first new product since 2024, especially since like the whole app situation happened. But it's an 8-channel amp, multi-zone. They're using gallium nitride, so GaN tech on the inside to make it really compact for something as powerful, and it supports natively AirPlay, AirPlay 2. Technically, that name got retired. It's just AirPlay.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you find out things when companies are very specific. Like I'll cover a product and say, oh yeah, this is Apple AirPlay 2. And then I'll get a note from that company saying, hey, Apple asked us to see if you could make it just AirPlay. And I'm like, yeah, like we just care really about like the SEO purposes. Like we're gonna have the names correct, but we want to make sure that we're hitting like search terms and things that people are interested in. So like, do customers know there was a difference? I don't know, but they're just calling it AirPlay now. And they did tease that hardware launches will continue to ramp up in the second half of 2026. So that's always good. I mean, especially with such a dry spell, I really want to see what they've got going on over there.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's a good amount of time for people to sort of forget about what happened and then kind of figure out. Yeah, it's like don't introduce anything new, bring in a bunch of new customers who then aren't happy with the situation. So probably a good play on their part. But the smaller tech honestly matters because I think I have a sub, like it's an old one, but those are just huge, and getting those to fit in better spaces. It's good that they're targeting pros also because there's that those are the people who are going to invest in it the most and not just kind of switch brands right away if it doesn't work or something like that.
For sure. And I mean, I really like Sonos stuff, and there's so many things that they could still do. I was very bummed when the news came out that they had canceled their streaming box. Even if I'm all in on Apple TV, a second premium streamer would be amazing. I guess third now because Google Home went the premium route with their streaming box. Good. Absolutely. Like it would really push Apple to hit some of those higher codecs like AV1 support, things like that they maybe aren't doing now. And maybe if we had another high-end box, it would push Apple more to do those things. So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to come out with, whether it's, new headphones, more speakers, or something completely different. But I'm interested to see what their new CEO is going to be prioritizing, I guess. Like it's going to say a lot about where their hardware will go.
Totally. It's a good way to dip your toe in the water sort of thing.
Yeah. In the actual Apple space, we have the AirTag 2. This was like the big news of all the things that had been rumored between HomePods, Apple TVs, MacBooks, like of all the stuff that everyone's been waiting for. Apple just randomly dropped AirTag 2. And I found that really interesting. Like this thing was rumored to come out in 2024, like last spring or 2025 spring. And it never came out. So now it's like, here it is with just very kind of little fanfare, but it's what we all expected, right? So same design, louder speaker, works from 50% further away. Hearing, like you hear it from 50% further away. They switched the note from an F to a G pitch, which it just seems higher. Yeah. So it's like that's probably helping it be heard farther away.
I wonder if old people can't hear it. Like the building that I just moved into has the door beeps extra loud because it's sort of designed for older people in general, so they'll actually hear it. So I wonder if that was part of it.
That could be part of it. I bet that. It couldn't hurt. I don't know, but the speaker is harder to remove now. They just added more glue, it seems, to make it harder to disable that. Thinner PCB on the inside, same battery life, all of that. The biggest changes are a new Bluetooth chip and a new UWB chip, like their second ultra wideband chip. Supports precision finding now on Apple Watch, 1.5 times the precision finding range, slightly heavier, but it's basically AirTag.
Yeah. Does it say NFC on the back now, right? I thought I saw that.
Yeah.
And
yes.
Is it NFC? Like that isn't...
I think that's how you can tap it to get information. Like if you found one, you could tap it and it would pull up like a link.
That makes sense.
I think I'm
wondering if you can add it as a shortcuts trigger because you can do NFC tags. And so I wonder if they specifically disabled it. I don't know why I've never tried that. Maybe I'll have to grab my keys.
Yeah. That.
Oh wait, those are dead.
Be interesting.
Well, okay, so that is a funny thing that I saw that some people like throw away AirTags because they don't realize that you could change the batteries on them, which is
no way.
Yeah. And then I think one thing that's funny about this is that they launched it right after Christmas, which is a little like not ideal. I saw someone in my building who is like trying to return he's trying to sell them because he's like, I missed the return window, but I was like, I'm pretty sure you just want to buy the new ones. Like, so, I don't know. Maybe it's not. But I was like sneaking suspicion. I was like, if you just bought them for Christmas, you're like, what the heck? Like,
they should have they should have probably waited like one more week because a lot of retailers have return windows for Christmas shopping through January 31st.
Well, maybe
I literally had
they did it the
an
other
Amazon
way. Maybe
return.
It's better for the customer. It's done in a week
maybe.
Earlier. Yeah.
they got some at Christmas. They bought in November, and they can return them right now. Well, now we're probably past it by the time this is dropping, but they can.
One person who's listening to this is going to be like, no.
Oh, I just got an 8-pack for Christmas. I
mean,
waited
they're
all
still
those
pretty
years.
much the same. It's at least not. There's a functional difference. It's just better, which is always helpful.
I think I'm going to change the one like on my keys because that's the one I probably use the most. It just seems like it'd be the most useful to get a minor upgrade. But literally everything else I have is going to be just fine with the current ones.
I'm wondering, like, switch. I was going to say move all mine to my luggage or something, but those are the ones where you actually want it. So, like, kind of strategically balancing your old AirTags with the new ones. Gotta come up with a system.
I mean, I think Apple did such a good job with the original AirTag because, like, they just kept dropping new features via software, like to the Find My app. So, like, everyone's like, "Oh, it's a minor upgrade." I'm like, "Yeah," but they released like a ton of new features since the original one dropped. I mean, they doubled the number. You could do 16, now you can do 32. They added actual sharing with other people that wasn't there at launch, which was super annoying. They added like the airline support, temporary link sharing.
I use that airline thing. I will say the one thing I want is shortcuts actions for the Find My app, because it even just very basic, like show, like open to that device so I can go check it would be actually super helpful, and it would show up in search and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that you could do with Find My in general with some sort of shortcut stuff. Like it does seem like an odd one that there's not more you can play around with there.
I think there's one possible reason in that it's like, hey, here's where everyone is right now. Like, so there's a level of abuse and protection that they try to add to shortcuts because it is a vector that most people don't expect. First of all, they just don't even realize it can do most of the things that they have, and even as we'll get into with automations, it's technically you can have stuff fire off in the background at all times. So it could be like, here's where you are at all times of day, and they could use that to like overthrow a government just with an AirTag or something like that. I mean, obviously there's other security limitations, but that's just like shortcuts in general is any reason. If you've ever wondered why it can't do something, it's probably for security reasons, and they'll maybe get there eventually with more protections. But I'm okay with AirTags not having it, I guess.
Okay, we have one last piece of news to hit, which is that the Wemo shuttering is here. It is upon us. Belkin announced that they were ditching the Wemo brand, ending their products, and they were shutting down all their servers. So if you had especially some of the earlier Wemo stuff, most of it's not going to function that relied on cloud servers. If you have any that are using Apple Home, those are going to be just fine. Things are getting removed from like all the different like services that were tying into them. Like IFT had, pretty verbose Wemo support there. That is all coming offline. They say like some of their newer products, like the video doorbell, will be still like covered with security updates and stuff like that for the time being. But basically this is it. Like the Wemo stuff is gone. Servers are shutting down for anything remote. And like the biggest thing with any Apple Home stuff is, fortunately, all of that will continue to work as normal. Like stuff that is
sort of like
local,
doesn't matter to me at least. Even though I have
literally, I'm not using the Wemo servers at all. So like I have Wemo smart plugs, and my grandma has the video doorbell, and she's got. There will be no difference. All of that will continue to work exactly as it is right now for Apple Home users.
That's kind of what I figured is like most people who set it up probably don't use their service, and that was what was required originally, and now they can kind of make it a little bit more seamless for people just who don't need it. I feel like especially the if this and that part makes sense because that's probably where most people had that, but you can do it with home automations and shortcuts at least. So there's definitely other hooks. I think that'll be plenty enough replacement for this audience at least, especially as we get into it next. But it is interesting that brand is like one of the longest running smart home brands. And do they have new outlets, or is it just they just don't do outlets anymore?
Nope, everything Wemo is gone. Nothing. I nothing else under
Eve that as a replacement. If anyone's looking for stuff, like their Thread stuff is usually very quick, which is great. So
Yeah, I really really like the thread stuff recently. It's been amazing since probably the 1.3 or 1.4 update to thread. Like fixed so many issues and it's been great. So yeah, the Eve stuff has been very rock solid. Like we had our Christmas tree on that, all year. And it's like every night with a good night scene, turning it on and off. Every time we leave the house, turn off the Christmas tree, all those types of automation set up, and it works fantastic. Nice. So yeah, Wemo's gone, but Eve stuff is similar in a lot of ways. There's no video doorbell, but
True.
They got a lot of other stuff cooking. Well, we talked about it, tying this into automations and shortcuts with the Wemo stuff. That's going to be our big topic for this episode, kind of getting into like the basics of shortcuts and automations and then getting some cool ideas and granular stuff. So let's go ahead and take a quick break and then we'll get into it. Is anybody else a little surprised at how fast 2026 seems to be going? I swear this year just started and yet somehow we are already into February. It seems like no matter what, I'm like always behind and there's never a good time to kind of like just commit to something that I want to do. If you've been mulling around some sort of idea for a business, for a product, for a service, you got to just take the plunge, right? There's never going to be that absolute perfect time because time just keeps on going and you don't want to miss that opportunity. Fortunately, you can focus on that new business, idea, venture, whatever it is, and have Shopify help with a lot of the rest. Shopify will help you get a website up and running within a couple hours, in an afternoon, and you can instantly start selling. It's really that fast. It handles all the stuff that you don't want to kind of have to deal with, like building the website and designing it and editing product photos and dealing with where you're going to ship to and shipping calculations and tax things. And like Shopify can literally like handle and automate so much of this stuff for you to get you going so you can focus on what you do best. Plus, Shopify is great because it scales. So if you are just starting out, perfect. Shopify's for you. If you're a medium-sized business just looking for some growth and new things to do, guess what? Shopify's also for you. Or if you are a massive company that is doing, millions in annual revenue, yeah, you guessed it. Shopify can also help you out. Shopify has all of the features that you need, whether it is building completely custom websites to managing inventory for online and in-store locations to coupon codes and promos and gift cards, all sorts of things like that. You can do cool plugins to add things like shipping protection so you can reduce a lot of the problems that customers are reporting in because you can kind of handle it all through like a shipping insurance thing. All sorts of cool stuff like that. Shopify is able to handle. It's an extremely verbose platform that can start simple and grow with you. The more features you need, the more stuff Shopify is able to deliver for you. Now, it's not just great to help you like on your end, it's also just great for customers. It's got one of the internet's best converting checkouts, has helpful AI tools to help you write copy that really speaks to your customer, and you can use Shopify to market to your customers wherever they happen to be. Plus, that checkout process that I mentioned, super cool. When you go through a Shopify checkout process, you recognize it, which gives your new business a lot of credibility. Like people don't know you, but they do know that checkout process and that checkout flow. So if they start to go to your site, it gives you that extra kind of, emphasis. Like people know it. They feel safer and it's more likely to convert people to actually buying something. Plus you can use Shop Pay. Like you click the checkout button and then next thing I know, I have like a code texted to my phone, which, using all my Mac stuff, like it pops up right there onto my computer and then autofill puts it in. So I can like click checkout and then like one more button and I'm done. I don't ever have to sign in and do it. It's just super, super fast, seamless, and secure. It's amazing. Or you can use like Google Pay, Shop Pay, or I mentioned Shop Pay, Apple Pay, all that stuff also works. It's fantastic. Then it kicks over to the Shop app. You can leave reviews, track your order, and find other cool sites to visit. So yeah, if I haven't kind of sold you on it already, you should definitely check it out. It's time to turn those what ifs into with Shopify today. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/HomeKit. Go to shopify.com/HomeKit. That's shopify.com/HomeKit. we can all agree, like, the internet's pretty great, right? Like, it's cool. Like, there's so many neat things on there, like really informative smart home podcasts and a bunch of other things. But there's also a lot of terrible stuff on the internet, like your data. And I say this as like another one where I have really good experience in, because I've told this story before, but I was looking up somebody just to kind of like confirm their address. I'm like, I think this is what their address is. I'm like, I just want to find out. So like I put their name into Google, and next thing I know, I see like way too much information about them. Like I see them, their spouse, their kids. I can see their address and several phone numbers that were like associated with them. How is that a thing? How is that a thing? It is, to me, that seems crazy that much information was out there, and it wasn't even behind a paywall. Like I could just see it by Googling their name. I hate that. That just seems awful. Well, fortunately, my sponsor, Incogni, can really help with that. Basically, this is a service that you sign up for. You give them the ability, like the legal ability to act on your behalf, and they will automatically go out there, go to all of these unethical sites and get your information removed automatically. Like you don't have to do anything other than sign up and give Incogni permission to go and act on your behalf and do this stuff. They will track it all down, they will find it, and they will have it removed. And you have a whole dashboard where you can view all this stuff happening. So you can see all of your information actually getting removed. I love data. It kind of like proves at how well this kind of stuff works. And then on top of that, it'll keep doing it. So if something comes back up, they'll be like hitting them again with another takedown request, which is fantastic. And because it's kind of targeting data brokers, your information can then get scrubbed, and then you could see a huge drop in things like spam text and spam phone calls or spam emails, because your information isn't just floating around on the internet where it could be scraped or sold. To me, that is huge. I would pay a lot of money to have spam phone calls, text, and emails decreased by a substantial amount. And they have a newer feature where there's custom data removals. So Incogni will go out there and do all like the major sites, right? But if it doesn't find something or if you find something that Incogni didn't find, you can submit that as a custom data removal request. You put it in there, you put the link in there, it's going to check it, make sure it's like something that's kind of supported, like it can't do, certain weird sites or something, but it'll then go ahead and do it and get it taken care of. Put in the request and get it all done. It's amazing. So it's going to do all the big ones automatically, and then now you have the ability on their new unlimited plan to go and do custom requests on even more sites if you happen to find something out there that has your information being made available. I think everybody should do this. I cannot imagine how much data people have on the internet, they don't even realize it, and how annoying spam things are, how bad things like identity theft and all those can be, and so much that can be prevented just by pulling your information off of the internet. So yeah, if you want to kind of do something about it, Incogni is a great place to do that. So right now you can get 60% off an annual plan by going to incogni.com and use code HomeKit. That is incogni.com/HomeKit and use the code HomeKit at checkout. Okay, let's get into this. I'm very excited. We have talked, I keep getting messages from a lot of people asking for like, hey, what's a great starter episode on like, Matter? What's a great starter episode to like learn more about Thread? And what's a great one to start looking at automations? And I thought this was a perfect way to get into that, to talk about shortcuts, because they're incredibly powerful, and I think they're a little intimidating to some people, and they also don't kind of live in the home app. So I reach out to Matthew, who is the guru on all of this, and I thought this would be a great place to start. So I guess before we get into that, tell people about you, Matthew. I mean, your history with workflow, shortcuts app, all of those things, and why you're so good at this.
It's lots and lots of time, the 10,000 hours thing. And it does help too. So I joined the workflow team I think a year after it was created, and I was using all of the actions and URL schemes and in drafts and sending my app data back and forth, learning from Mac Stories. That's definitely the OG there. And then I was like, this is a confusing app, and I think you guys need some marketing help because it's just engineers building it, and then it's sort of like variables and all these other things that if you're a normal person, I'll say, it just sort of your eyes glaze over the instant you hear some of that stuff. And so it makes sense that even today now, so Apple acquired Workflow and turned it into the Shortcuts app, and it makes sense that today that people are still confused by it because in many ways the interface is still the same exact thing from Workflow. It's been Appleified and cleaned up and things like that, and they've added all Apple actions, and then rather than using links to send information back and forth, now it's called app intents, and it's a fancy developer method that is actually really important for Apple Intelligence. So Shortcuts has kind of gone through this whole life of being Siri shortcuts originally, where it was just a single command, to now Siri will be able to look into your apps and understand information about them and what you can do with them and take action. That's the thing that they advertised in 2024 and still hasn't launched, but we're on the precipice of it actually launching, and what that enables is super cool. Just for rumor sakes, it's like supposed to run on Gemini, and I think that will, it's my simplest explanation was that Google is better at Googling the app intents data than Apple was. Like, they're just faster and they can do that stuff at scale. So I think it will actually work. Which is kind of the big question, is does this work? It's like it just didn't work very well when they launched it, and so they didn't actually launch it, or when they planned to launch it. So all of that is like that's very much your phone handling things and interacting with apps. And for the longest time, home automations have been around as well, even before. I'm trying to remember when they even started. I think it was before Shortcuts, because it's available in the Shortcuts app because they added automations to Shortcuts, but it's technically all runs through the home. So I think what is confusing there is a lot of people go through Shortcuts, try to set up a personal automation, which requires the device to be present. And then you can also set up a home automation, which then is like sort of this other thing that runs off of your home hub. So a really important distinction between those is that essentially home automations can't actually use your apps because your HomePod doesn't have apps. It is just a way that is sort of like a server that's running there that you can interact with it, and it's always on. It even sometimes knows what the temperature is or like if anybody's home and stuff like that. So your phone doesn't know that kind of thing, and I'm glad it doesn't. That's a different level of creepiness that we don't need. So is sort of this weird break in the middle. The personal automations have their own triggers, like time of day, but even tapping your phone to NFC tags, like we were saying, or even when you get an email from your boss, those are like new ones that people really don't know about. And then home automations are like when you arrive or leave, time of day, accessories controlled, or sensors. So those are all based off of the home understanding that that's happening, not you. And so it also applies to all your family members. And that is one sort of tricky thing that about setting up home automations is, as much as you might want to, your partner or your kids are like, please stop. This isn't working, and it's very fragile. So I think that is one reason we don't see people go super deep with home automations on social media and things like that. Also because it's always super unique to your situation, and not like if somebody else doesn't have the exact same setup, they can't use it. And even in a literal way, the actions require like your device to work, for at least the Shortcuts ones. So it's pretty hard to share this home stuff without just telling someone and then walking them through the explanation themselves.
Yeah, and man, it gets so confusing between your regular home automations that you're creating in the home app. Then you can create, automated shortcuts and those personal, what do they call it? Personal
automations are the
personal automations.
Yeah.
That you're creating in the Shortcuts app. And then you can also create your automation in the Home app and hit convert to shortcut.
That's what I was going to say.
And
That's
then,
the tricky. That's
yeah,
another
which
level that I think is where everyone immediately gets tripped up, because you're expecting to have access to your shortcuts actions there. And what it does is it has a limited subset of actions that can run on the HomePod and are sort of just functions of it already. So very simple is just weather. Like if it's raining outside, then turn my lights blue. I don't know why you'd want them blue, but you can do better automations than that. But that's where a lot of that advanced sort of home automation comes if those simple triggers don't set up. So there are the scripting actions, some of them, like they're called control flow, which is where you're controlling the flow of how the things go. And so a very simple one is the if action, which is based on any conditions you can have. If this happens, otherwise do that. So right there, if you have that Wemo device, you can set it up with the sensor. So if this happens, go do something else. Otherwise, do that. And it can run on the HomePod itself, and it will always work. So the other level of that is the advanced section of the advanced part of this is technically Shortcuts also provides URL actions and ways to interact with the web through a action called get contents of URL, which is how you interact with web services. So technically, if this then that is doing this exact same thing. It's calling a URL to those web services with a bunch of information in the link or in the payload, things like that. You can do that same thing from your HomePod and interact with a third-party service. So originally, back in the day, I actually wrote the documentation for workflow, and it's still in Shortcuts. And there are guides for how to use APIs in Shortcuts that applies to these home automations. So there's actually a link on Apple's website where they explain how you can set this up. But sort of they're called endpoints. I'm getting into it's pretty technical language, so I think if you're a everyday home automation user, you're probably not like making API requests with your HomePod and things like that. But it is possible, and so there is this whole level of you can have, I don't know, maybe you use AI now to roll your own web service that can respond to these things, and you can have some sort of fancy reactions. So that's a whole level of that. Seems like Shortcuts. That seems like the Shortcuts app. You are making web requests using scripting actions, but it gets confusing because you're like, I just want to use an app, and it doesn't work there, but it's because the HomePod is controlling it. So that's sort of the very detailed version of the split between personal and home automations. And even within home automations, there's the convert to shortcut function. And so if you're in there, you might be a little confused, but it's like those are the only actions that work on your home devices. I would like to see that expanded, just to say, like, it's only been launched and never really touched again. So
that's a good place to make a distinction. So home automations created in the Home app will obviously run on your HomePod, all of that. If you create that automation in the Home app and hit convert to shortcut, you get a smaller subset of additional controls you can put in, but those will still run on your HomePod without issue, and you don't have to have your device nearby, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
Perfect. So that's like a good next step. You know, you get outside of, so here's a perfect example. I promise that one day we will get out of this winter, but you know, we're going to go into spring and you're getting into gardening stuff. If you created, like if you have an Eve Aqua, you have it out there, you set a schedule for like every morning it comes on at 6 a.m. or something. But if it's raining, you don't want to do that. So you could create, right, an automation converted into a shortcut where it first uses a conditional to get the weather. If it's raining, do nothing. If there's no rain, water the garden.
Totally. And that's a perfect, there's actually an action called nothing in Shortcuts that does nothing for that purpose. So you can specify, like, don't continue sharing data that was previously in the shortcut. But yeah, there's get weather, get details of weather, and then you would probably do, sometimes it can get tricky because, like, if you check for the conditions and just do raining, but it's like I don't know if pouring is an actual condition, but like for
Right.
snow,
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, so you could actually do by like the precipitation amount and get very specific. It really gives you a full breadth of control. I think it's like overwhelming sometimes because it's like, is this on? Is it off? What's the state? What's the percentage of the state? And it can get pretty technical quickly, but some of those simple if actions are worth trying. And I think most people probably hit the limits of home automations with just simple triggers and don't realize that you can go that next step and add, like, because it makes sense. You go through, you add all the conditions in the event trigger, but now in the convert to shortcut part, you do additional logic. And so I think that's why people just don't know it's even there and don't realize that you can do much more with it.
Yeah, because traditionally we'd say like, oh, check out a third-party app to do more of those conditional statements, but you can do them with that convert to shortcut feature.
I think actually
and another one,
those apps, sorry to interrupt, but I think those apps do enable further automations than what are here, and those sync
yes,
back, and then it's all in the flow anyways. So that's
yes,
another
those
good tip. It's still worth using.
the third-party ones like Home Plus, the Eve app, those, because they're not using shortcuts for that, those are just native home functionalities that they are just doing, so they work. But you can do everything, or do a lot, from home, the Apple Home app, by using that shortcut feature. Like you could do like when you go into a room with like a motion sensor, how you're determining whether lights are turning off, or button presses. If you want one press to turn the lights on in a room, how do you turn them off? You can't press it again because there's no conditional. So you can set up a conditional of like, on button press, if lights are on, turn them off. If off, turn them on.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Allow that one button press to double what it does with that, and that makes it way easier, which is another weird thing that I'm surprised they have never added to Apple Home natively. Just button presses to act as a toggle.
Yeah. You can have oh wait. Shoot, I had a good point and it skipped out. Oh man. The more I'm trying to remember it, the more it's getting away.
It's just running away from you.
No,
Conditionals, buttons, bathrooms, motion sensors.
Oh, okay. I got it.
Yes.
The one thing you can add is the get details of home is a good action to be able to check the current state or the current conditions of a smart home device. It's also built into the if action only while you're in the home automations view. So if you tap, when you add if, you can like tap on it again and add different ways to check for the condition that using like built-in variables, like if the date or time, things like that is also very useful. But then the home accessory capabilities are built into the if action automatically. So that I just to say another important point, that the actions in the convert to shortcut view are called control home and get details of home, but those are also back in the shortcuts app. So you're able to use and control all of your HomeKit devices through shortcuts on your local device and through personal automations as well, but it does require the phone to like be on or be present and things like that. So it doesn't have the same conditions. You can't check for sensors and things like that. So there is some overlap, but there's also more of a split as well that's important to know about. But that's another thing, is that you can, anywhere you can't fill out your home automations and even those convert to shortcut advanced automations, you can just make a shortcut that does it and interacts with your app and then trigger that. And then the other layer is that if you call that shortcut by name to the HomePod, it will work. So that's the whole level that I think separate from home automations, is I don't think anybody knows that all the shortcuts you make, if you trigger them from HomePod, they will work. All the prompts that you write into your actions, Siri will ask you out loud. Oh no, I probably just triggered everybody's devices. She'll ask you out loud, and then they'll be able to respond and then continue through the steps. And so technically you've been able to do advanced shortcuts on the HomePod for, I think, 3 or 4 years now. And most people just don't know it's available, partially because Apple's literally never told anyone. It's like it's in there, and if you know about it, and it's in the developer session saying it's available, but I think they really didn't. What is true is a lot of this can be rigid, and so it's not as ideal as Apple Intelligence, and you're like, hey, just turn on all the lights, and she's like, yeah, I figured it out. Like, I think that's sort of the area that we need to get to next. But what is so cool about shortcuts and home automations is that you can actually control it down to every single last detail. And I feel like for home automation type people, that's exactly what you want. Like, it's 90 or it's like 75.3 degrees, and that's when I want the water to go on or whatever. So you can really get detailed with this stuff.
Yeah. I'm curious at what suggestions you have for personal automations that tie into home devices. Because like, while they are specific to your devices, I think they are useful in places like the bathroom, if you do anything specific, like if you have any like smart stuff in there that are your preferences that might be different. I think it's a personal automation that I have, like when my alarm goes off on my phone, and when I actually do that, that'll turn on my headboard light to give me like a subtle glow behind the bed as I'm like waking up in the morning. So it discourages me from hitting snooze right away and adds some actual light in the room.
Yeah,
but that's a really nice, that's a really helpful one that I have found. But I feel like there are a lot more that people could do. And the thing that gets hard is like the deep app integrations that especially people have been doing. One of these things, everyone, that I think is always hilarious that Matthew does all the time. For some reason, half the time in my Twitter feed is just him responding to companies telling them they need to add like app intents and all these things to their applications, which is like the biggest like
people
public
actually
service
see that.
thing.
I don't. That's one of those things you think is anonymous, but no.
No,
That's
and
awesome.
it is great. Like I love this. Someone is out there like calling like, hey, if you just did this, this would be so much better. And like, I'm hoping
I did
that
do
they're
that to
paying
the
attention.
Substack guy, and he was like, "Good idea." Like, and I was like, "Thanks." Like, do it, please. Like,
I mean, it unlocks so much functionality, and that's what gets. Like, shortcuts is this thing where it can be very basic, just to help you automate your garden,
Totally.
but then you can do so much between the scripting, API calls. Now we have like Apple Intelligence prompts built in there, so you can take inputs, throw it into the AI engine, and then get things out of that. So trying to take that and then turning it into, you know, whatever home stuff that you want to do would be really interesting. Like, there's
you
so
just got
much.
my wheels turning. So what you're referring to is there's an action called use model in shortcuts, which lets you essentially design a prompt for Apple Intelligence that it can always respond and always like do an intelligent response. So I haven't really thought about. There's not exactly the right way to pass in your data, but being like, here's all my smart home data, like figure out what to do with. I don't know that. With use model, you have to have more specific instructions. It's not like talking to ChatGPT or something like that. But that
I'm
is a
wondering if you
cool
could
way that
go
you
and
could
get,
integrate it in the middle. It's
could
like
you
the
get
weather
the
data.
state of something? Yeah. You get
This is
get
great.
that, assign it to a variable, throw that into your prompt, and then get do something or whatever after. Like, I feel like you get real crazy.
Yeah, it's impressive. You can actually choose between the local model, their private cloud compute, or actually ChatGPT itself. And so you do have access to that actually intelligent model that like
Yeah.
can do some processing at different levels. Or like oh man, that's fascinating. There is so much. I think one of the actions that you need the most in shortcuts is the ability to find data or get data. So the get details of device action would provide it. I think it would just be kind of cumbersome to set up because you'd have to use it like 30 times. But still, once you set it up, it could actually be super useful. So that's super intriguing. The other one for personal automations, NFC tags are really fun. That's the original one for me that was like, my phone is a device for my smart home. I just tap it to this and the light turns on. And I think the problem is I set up I'm trying to reach under my desk right now because I set up NFC tags and then I forgot about them. So like over time, it did sort of. I hid them so that I didn't have to see them because I don't find it the most attractive, and then I just forgot about them. So there is this sort of level of it only really works truly well in certain specific situations where it's like you don't mind seeing the NFC tag and you can tap the phone, but it feels like a very similar early version of that UWB thing is like, oh, clearly people want this and that should just be native to the phone. So there is a level there of shortcuts can inform the smart home and back and forth. And I think what is true about deep app integrations is that there's not as many today as you might want. And Apple Intelligence is the biggest kick in the pants I've seen for developers to actually get this done. Because it was like, that's nice for shortcuts for the long, like literally for Matthew for the longest time of like, there's power users who are doing crazy things, but what I've recognized over time is partially you don't want to be. Nobody is like me and has time to set all these things up, and the device should just be able to do it on its own. I think what's super cool about Apple's platform is after the fact, you can have those controls and set it up and have that workflow, but have AI figure it out the first time for you. And then you're like, no, you did it wrong. Here's how it should actually be. And then you can have that access under the hood, both in shortcuts. You don't have as much in the home app and through home automations, but there's a level there that most people probably aren't even aware of. I'll say the one super interesting smart home thing that I think is coming this year is if there's a HomePod with a screen, it will entirely run using shortcuts and app intents and that API, because there's a big session this year called interactive snippets, and when you use shortcuts and it shows you information, that's called a snippet. And very similar to widgets being this little tile where you can interact with apps, interactive snippets are sort of a way for a shortcut to run, or any sort of app intent, which is also controls, lock screen stuff. There's a bunch of different ways to trigger it that will all show that snippet and interact with it. And when I saw that, I was like, that's a really good way to use an app if you don't have a keyboard. If there's just a screen, it shows the snippet, you can interact with it and use it with Siri, but then it'll go away and actually trigger it on your phone and the thing will happen. So like, this is one of those things of like, in the past I was like, isn't app intents going to be Apple Intelligence? And I was like, I'm not sure. I don't want to like make a prediction. I 100% think interactive snippets are going to be the way to use the HomePod with the screen. Like, it doesn't make sense to me otherwise. There's no other way for apps to work with this. And here's a whole entire ecosystem that's designed for it. It's super robust and is also the core of their AI strategy going forward. So I'm like, yeah, I'm almost positive this is how it's going to work. So that's I've never said it on a podcast yet. So that's my official prediction. And maybe I'll come back on if I'm right or if I'm wrong.
I think it makes sense. It would unlock a ton of functionality to a HomePod with a screen like that. I think what would really help, like Samsung did that, I'm sure others have as well, but Samsung recently added to their SmartThings app for at least home automations an AI prompter to help you build your automations. You just tell it what you wanted to do and it like makes your automation for you. And I wish they added something like that to shortcuts and Apple Home, like same thing, but being able to say in plain English like what you want to do and then get it to design that shortcut for you, because sometimes they can be really long and crazy. Like some of the ones that I have are intense, and then other ones are just so short and easy. And the other thing is trying to figure out like what you can do. Like a lot of apps will add support for these things and you don't even realize that they're there or that they've added them. And I sometimes get a tease, like you go to Spotlight Search on your phone or your iPad and you start to like type it in and it'll have like those little like outline glyphs. Those are actions that are essentially,
just so you
see,
know.
there you go. App shortcuts.
Totally agree. I think that's the hard part. And I think that's why it is really encouraging that like it's actually going to happen soon, the Siri part, because that was a kick in the pants that then I'm mixing metaphors here, but then Apple dropped their pants and blew the whole situation. So they did not do well there. And I get why people lost faith in that in the interim. But I do think that that's going to be a major thing. Like every app, they put a phrase up that's anything your app does should be an app intent. And that's a very clear, like all of your functionality in every app should be addressable with this. And then that, as soon as that's like released, then in theory the HomePod will have access to all of your app's functionality as well.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I'm always trying to think of more, but it's like the discovery too is a struggle for me. Like Apple has like their gallery in the Shortcuts app, but it's
okay.
Like it was news when one was added.
I made most of those, literally. Like the ones that are in there are still some of the ones that I made. So that is not ideal. There's new ones for new features, but there's like Evernote ones down at the bottom where I'm like, nobody uses Evernote. Like like obviously people do, but it's not.
Sure,
it was trendy when I made it in 2016.
Same, yeah.
Not now. I agree. I mean, home automations I think are the trickiest one, especially because people they don't have the same devices, and you literally can't share them. Personal automations, you can't share the automation itself, but Apple did change sort of the setup, so they're mostly designed to, instead of like building the shortcut in the automation, it's designed to pick a shortcut and run it. And so you should build your shortcuts outside of the personal automation thing, and then just have your automation run that shortcut, and then you can share that shortcut with anyone. And I also say, like, anyone who's listening, just message me and I can help you out. Like, especially because of the show. I don't know. I love this kind of stuff, and it's always just so specific. And usually not too hard to set up together once you have someone like me to help, I guess.
Yeah, there's so many things you can do. I struggle to find which apps add things, which ones don't. And there's still times when like some apps have such great support than others. It's just minimal at best. Like for the Dexcom one, the G7 I use, and like there is a shortcut that I can use to get my glucose value, but I would love to be able to tie it to the alert instead. So like if I have a low glucose value and it's at night or something like that, turn on the bedroom lights. So like not only is it giving me an alert saying that I'm going low, yeah, it's like waking my wife up so that she can like, hey, are you dead over there? Like, or about to be. So like those would be really useful.
Yeah, I suppose
there's so many things I can do.
Life-saving, literally. No, I agree. Yeah. I mean, I would be remiss not to say that I help developers with their app intents integrations now, because I've spent so long in shortcuts, and I was like, this is dumb to watch people not understand this, and I know what it should look like. So I actually did start an app intents consulting business, and I'm helping developers now with their integrations. So feel free to ask them to integrate it, and if you want to, tell them I'll help them. Because I just don't know how to come contact with someone like Dexcom and help them set it up. But that stuff is really important, and adding that functionality well and the way that actually works reliably so that automation gets set up and does work could save your life versus not doing it properly. So I think that is one of the reasons I'll say some automations and home automations also is like, it is there are some that are like for the police to respond when your device gets taken. And as much as I love the idea, I'm always so scared that it won't work. Like, I don't want to tell someone that this will work and will save you, and then it doesn't, and you relied on that. So I think that's one thing that can be a little freaky with some of those other personal automations. But home stuff is usually pretty trivial. I think the thing that you will end up is like, I for sure had the lights turn on at 3 a.m. randomly, because like when I moved, the device didn't know where my home was anymore, because like the relevant locations thought my old home was where I lived, and so it would randomly update to where I was, and it's like, you're home, and then turned on all the lights at 2 a.m. So I actually have some of my automations set off right now, and I do need to fix them a bit. But even just doing stuff like an hour before sunrise, like it really gets great when you have the temperature control or like smart blinds. And I think with lights, people do end up being like, oh, I can just do basic things and don't get into the fun advanced automations. But as you get a more advanced home setup, it's definitely worth checking out home automations and personal automations and that whole mix of how you can control these things.
Yeah, I think a great place for everyone to start is trying with the NFC stuff. Just triggering and seeing what you can build just with a tap. I've done I've done a lot of woodworking, so I actually made a box thing before, and I actually hollowed at the back and put an NFC tag behind the wood, and you would tap your phone on the box, and it would launch a slideshow on your phone, which of course was very device specific, but
still, that's awesome.
It was a memory box and would pull up like a wedding album and play the wedding song with just a tap, which was like a really cool little thing. I've done it to picture frames to light up the picture frame itself, because I had like a string light behind it that was on a smart switch. So if you tap the NFC tag, it would turn on the backing of the frames, and tap it again would turn them off.
That's sick.
And I was actually wondering, at CES, SwitchBot just released their AI art frame. I wonder if you could create some automation of like tapping it and it would like change the art or do something else.
I think them specifically, ironically, they're one of the first companies that did this, and maybe are still one of the last, is that they only supported shortcuts and not home automations. I think they added a hub eventually, but there are some smart home products that are like, it works with Siri shortcuts and don't put the Apple Home thing, and then they have shortcut support in the app, but then you can't do the home automations with them. And so I think that is the one that's the good last detail to cover that sometimes trips people up. Is it's more like if they don't have Matter support and things like that, and they're kind of trying to get away with it, sort of. But for a while, it is still a good solution if otherwise. Like I have one that their little finger or the little button press thing, it turns on my espresso machine, and that's just a shortcut. But yeah,
true.
SwitchBot is a great brand.
Awesome. I know we could just keep talking about all these things.
Yeah,
there's
literally
endless amount. So we're going to have to do round 2. Hopefully when a new HomePod is announced, we can come back. We can talk about how Apple's actually adding all this into its assistant and all the crazy stuff you'll be able to do if you make an app, or if you have an app that you want shortcuts built into and you want to tell them to go get in touch with Matthew. I'll put links for your site or whatever down below in the actual show notes for everybody to check out. Anything else you want to leave us with, Matthew?
No, I was going to say happy automating, and definitely seriously reach out. I love hearing from ideas. Multiple times on this episode, I was like, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. So I think that's the hardest part, is everybody gets stuck in their own home and doesn't see what other people's homes are like. So it is super helpful to share your ideas or ask if there isn't something you can do now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Everybody, everything we talked about, Matthew stuff, all down below in the show notes for you guys to check out on your own time. If you want to watch the video version of this, you can go to youtube.com/HomeKit Insider. You can leave me questions there for next week's episode. I believe next week's episode will be someone from Yale. We'll be talking to Garrett from Yale, so that'll be fun. You can go ahead and leave the podcast a 5, 10, 100-star rating on your podcast player of choice. You can find me on all of the socials, and I'll see everybody in the next episode.